welcome to 700 Club Canada. Joining us all this week are Neil and Sharol Josephson from FamilyLife Canada. And today they'll share tips from dealing with one of the most common conflicts in a relationship. Have you guessed it? The subject of finances. Welcome back, guys.
Money. Hi, good to be back.
Right?
Thank you.
Money.
Yes. So far we've covered sex, we've covered household chores, and now we're talking about money.
Sure. Right.
It's a good week.
Honestly, we're just going right in there. Why is money, finances, such a conflict in marriage?
Well, you're absolutely right, it is. I think one of the very basic reasons is just because there's a financial component to everything. So first thing in the morning you wake up, are you going to make coffee at home? Are you going to get Starbucks on the way to work, right? There's a money component to everything, and every dollar is a decision. And when you're two different people, you probably see that decision in different ways. So the potential is there to have conflict all the time because there's such a common dynamic about money.
Wow, I never thought of it that way, honestly.
Yeah, it's like the air we breathe. It's constantly an issue.
Yes, yes. And at the core then, what is the root of this problem? It certainly isn't about whether you buy a Starbucks or not. But what is underneath this conflict?
We've thought a lot about that in our own life and in the couples that we work with. And it's not just about whether you have enough money or not. I mean, most people could use a little bit more money, and you should balance your income and expense. You should have a budget. But what we learned in our ministry days long, long ago, we started meeting with people that were very wealthy. We started meeting with people that had financial planners. We started meeting with people that had budgets, and they were still at each other. And conversely, we met people that are really working hard just to make it.
Right.
Who seem to be at peace.
In harmony with each other.
So what we started looking for, and we've discovered there's some values that underlie money. And when we differ in these values, that's where you still have the decision, do we buy coffee out or make it at home? But the reason you fight is because you have a conflict of values. And here's the 4 key values. Money as status, money as power and control, money as entertainment, and money as security.
Wow.
And so when we differ in those areas, we're going to have pretty heated, pretty deep conflicts.
Boy, that's an important conversation to have.
It is.
What is money mean to you?
Can
What
I give
does
you
it
an example?
represent? Yes, please do.
So let's say we have to buy a TV. And of course, I know the TV we should have, it's unbelievable. It's like 90 inches and it's, high def. And, it only costs $8,000, right?
In your dreams.
Not today. Today they're cheaper, actually. Those big TVs.
There you go. and so Sharol goes, no, I saw a really good one at Costco and I went by $600. It looks like it's just fine. So are we really fighting about the dollars? Let's say security is your issue. Sharol goes, love to have that big TV, but I hate going in debt. And we don't have the cash. Because
and it makes me feel...
Because when we go in debt, I feel insecure.
Right.
So,
and that is true of me. This isn't just
it's not hypothetical.
You're not making this up on the spot.
I don't know.
This one is.
Payments next year, I'll get it.
Yeah, so security, because that would just topple her feelings of security that we're going to spend all this money. Okay, what's the next?
Okay, do you want to do it?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so status. It's like my brother just got a new TV, and his TV is fantastic. My brother's always been more than me. My brother's always had more stuff than me. I have to have a better TV than my brother. So somehow money validates me, makes me feel like I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then, entertainment. Like I want the big TV because I want the Stanley Cup playoffs in my house. I want the movie parties at my house.
Right.
I want a big TV so we can have a huge party.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what money is. Money's to make people happy.
Right.
And then the last one, and this is really corrosive, money's power. So you go, okay, it's not about how much we spend on a TV. It's like, why do you get to make the decision?
Yeah.
Why don't I get to say something? So that's where people can really run.
So understanding those underlying values, it doesn't actually change the potential for conflict, but at least it helps you understand where your partner's coming.
What you're really fighting about.
What you're really fighting about.
Yeah.
I bumped into this young couple in Banff several years ago, and they were at loggerheads, these two beautiful young people, over money. And the issue was he wanted her to go back to work after they had children, and she didn't want to go back to work. She was raised in a home where the mom was stay-at-home mom, and that was always what she wanted. And they were just at it, and she's like, how can he make me go back to work when I want to be with our children? But as you took a few layers off, what came to light was he grew up in a family where there was never enough money. He lived in perennial stress and anxiety, even as a child, that they were going to be kicked out of their house. And so he lived with this kind of deep peace about security. And they were just not listening to each other. And so once she understood that this is where it was coming from, they still had to have the conversation.
Yes.
But all of a sudden the volume goes way down, and then you have a rational conversation when you're talking about real things and dollars rather than coming out of these values that can be really opposing.
Because we want to stress again, two real people trying to build a life together, there's going to be moments of disagreement.
Yeah.
But you just got to make sure you know what you're disagreeing over, you know?
Oh, that's so helpful because, like, what are we actually fighting about? And I mean, in this day and age, the reality of living in extreme debt, of feeling financial pressure, like it's real. The struggle is real. We're in a time of terrible inflation. And
That's right.
so, I mean, I can resonate with everything that you're saying, even after, you know, my marriage of 37 years. Fortunately, my husband and I had very much the same shared values.
Yes.
We hated debt.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, we will do everything to not take on too much debt and to get out of debt as quickly as possible. However, and we did a pretty good job with that. However, the struggle would come with I'm glass half full and he's glass half empty, realizing, we finally realized, I never grew up being afraid of not having enough money. And he grew up always afraid they wouldn't have enough money. All of a sudden we understood, we didn't have like, you know, huge fight, but understanding that need took the conversation right.
That's so good.
What about you guys? Has this been, what have you seen even in your own marriage?
This is, you touched on something that's a big issue for us in other areas, but particularly in this area, that whole where one person sort of plays everything down.
Right.
We call that minimizing, and Neil's a minimizer. And it's one way that minimizers control their anxiety and stress. So if we were feeling stressed about money, and we were in our earlier years, money was really
Like a lot of newer
and
couples,
for sure. And so when he was feeling stressed about money, he would downplay that stress by, we got this, babe. No worries. We got this.
Yeah.
Calm.
Yeah, that's right.
Which would make me, and I'm a bit of a magnifier, but this would make me go crazy. Because my feeling was he was not understanding the magnitude of the situation. So I would ratchet up the, and so then he minimized all the more because
She's losing it. I better dampen this down.
She's out of control.
Yeah, and then you spin away from each other.
And then you go this way, and the conflict escalates, and you're not really even talking about the issue. You're talking about how you're fighting.
So good. The minimizing, maximizing, you guys hit on that dynamic in marriage. We're going to be right back with more tips for overcoming financial stress and how you talk about it and what's underneath it with Neil and Sharol in just a moment.
Is your marriage thriving? We're here to help you make your relationship stronger. Call our prayer lines today at 1-855-759-0700 or visit 700club.ca and request Love and Marriage, a powerful resource and tool to use on your journey from striving to thriving to make your marriage stronger. It's yours free when you call today.
Wow, I'm learning so much. Neil and Sharol, thank you for being just so honest and transparent and talking about real things like money. Okay, which one of you is the spender and which one is the saver?
Here's our problem. We're both spenders.
Oh, no. No, you're truly in trouble.
I mean, we're better now, but early on in our marriage, that got us into big time trouble.
Is that a thing? Like, is this a common thing you see?
Yeah, it is. And either way, it's a potential source of conflict, right? Because when you have a spender and saver, you're going to disagree. You know, like, why can't we take the vacation? No, we got to have the cash first. And, you know, well, I'm not secure until we have X in the bank. And so spenders and savers make each other crazy.
Yeah.
But if you're both spenders like us, that's a problem of a different sort.
And I'll tell you that I will tell you about a season of our marriage where we really got into financial trouble. And some of us, I was actually working in media, had a big salary, and we felt God leading us to leave that behind, move, and so Neil could take this position as president of a small Bible college. our income went down by 75% overnight. The problem was my spending did not go down by 75% overnight. And I'll be honest, I got us into some serious financial trouble. Here's the worst, and this is the piece that I think people can learn from. We were so ashamed of ourselves. We were Christian leaders.
Yeah.
I used to do consumer reporting. I knew how to tell people how to get out of debt.
Yeah.
But here we gotten ourselves into a real tough spot. And we were so ashamed of ourselves that we didn't go for help. And that's what we tell couples.
Yeah.
When you get into trouble, there's so many great resources available.
Yes.
There's so many great organizations and
wise
experts
people around you.
who will walk you through a plan. And somehow it would have just taken and then the pressure created stress between us. I think young couples they get themselves into this trouble and they don't look for help.
Yes.
Money's the new sex. We're way more hesitant to talk about our money issues than we are to talk about our sexual issues in our current culture. It's the taboo topic now.
Interesting.
And I think we need to bring it into the light in order to get the help we need.
I love what you just said, because over and over again on this show, we show many stories of lives that have gone into a pit somehow. And shame is a number one thing that will keep you in that pit.
Totally.
Right?
Freezes you.
And yet our God does not ever speak shame to us.
I know.
And he's willing to heal, and he just wants us to, really speak it out loud. And there's freedom available. I love that. Any practical things before we just transfer into another question here, but I just want to know, is there any tips or, I don't know, tricks maybe isn't the right word here, but for finances, but any just practical help?
Yeah, today it's interesting. People are getting married later.
Yeah.
And what that means is you come into marriage maybe with more assets than ever before, or you come in with more debt than you've ever had before, right? Like when Cheryl and I got married, we were super, super young. We had $300 between us. We had no debt, but we had the money. But you get married in 30, 32, and like it's a different day.
Yeah.
And then if you're blending a family, so we always talk about yours, mine, and ours. You need to have the conversation. What's yours? What's mine? What's ours? Now, we've always blended only one bank account. I know other people do different things, but you got to be clear.
Yes.
What's yours? What's mine? What's ours?
Interesting. We were always the ours, like we blended
we
our
were
bank
too.
accounts. And I just found that that's a great way for us to be on the same page, literally. And I mean, I found that personally helped our marriage a lot.
Us too. It's more complicated with blended families. And that's where the yours, mine, and ours actually
But we've coached people who get married at 30 and one of them's worked hard and they're debt-free and the other one's still carrying $40,000 student loan. You go, am I marrying the loan?
Right.
Like, you better talk about
Is that
this.
yours or is that ours? Yeah.
That's our point. You better talk about it.
Oh, that's
And
really
then
good.
the last thing I'll say, it's not a trick, but invite God into that area of your life. I don't know why. I think you're so right. The shame piece just kept us from asking for human help, but it also kept us from asking for divine help.
Right.
And once we humbled ourselves before the Lord and humbled ourselves and got some help, we've never been back there ever again, thanks be to God. But man, it breaks my heart when I see young couples in that spot and they feel like there's no way out.
Stressed.
And they feel like it's a life sentence, and it's not.
And it's not. I love that. I wanted to ask you this, so you just set it up perfectly. What is God's view of marriage? Like, what is this biblical idea of marriage? How does God see it, Neil?
I think marriage is a chance to know God more fully. So the Bible says God is love. So it doesn't, God doesn't do love like an activity. God is love. It's his essence. So when we go a little deeper in love, we're understanding more of who we are because we're created in God's image. That's why we have the capacity to love. Messed up as it is, imperfect as it is, that impulse to love is a leftover fingerprint from God. So when we get deeper into love, we know more of God. And then I think when we build 2 in 1, 1 in 2 marriage, we reveal God, who is himself 3 in 1, 1 in 3. So this whole mystery beauty of 2 becoming 1, it's a witness to God.
Yeah, beautiful. What about you, Sharol?
Yeah, I think marriage is the one relation. I mean, all through scriptures, God's relationship with his people, the analogy and the metaphor of marriage runs through scripture. And so I think when we get it right, and let's be honest, it's hard to always get it right, but when we get it right, our marriages can be such a beautiful picture
Yeah.
of how God loves his
Yeah,
people
yeah.
and the grace that we show each other, the forgiveness that we grant each other. I think it can be. I used to think that if I understood God better, and that it would help me in my, if I understood and knew how much God loved me and how God saw me, that it would help me in my relationship with my husband. I think that's true for sure, but I've learned the opposite's true as well. The flip side, when I feel really loved by Neil, really seen, forgiven when I don't deserve it, it really helps me understand God. And so I think the human can inform the divine, and the divine can inform the human in this wonderful, synergistic
And I think-
way
I
that
think
God
that's
has
what God
designed.
intended,
I know,
yeah.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
That is so good. And I know maybe, you're watching today and you're thinking, I don't think my marriage is a picture of what God wanted. There's always hope.
There is.
And I heard you say, and I'll say it again, don't let shame hold you back.
No.
Don't let shame or anything you've done or things have been done to you to hold you back from asking for help, from going to God, from going to trustworthy people. Thank you